Welcome to this month's Lunch and Learn with Terry, Francesca, and myself. We are excited to have you. And yes, it is June, it is summer, and thank you for being here in the middle of beautiful weather. What we decided to do was have a little bit of fun with the behavioral elements and talk about the behavior of pets. And we're going to try to identify some different things. Now, I'm going to tell you from the science side, we have not scientifically validated the assessment against any other species. So I want you to know that today is conjecture fun, but we are going to be bringing in some aspects of animal behavioral science. Yes, I am a nerd and I have studied some ethology. And ideally, this can also help you not only build a beautiful life and a beautiful partnership with your pets and all of those keepsake relationships that you have with the animal kingdom, but these also have a big impact because guess what? Humans are part of it. So let's start off. Francesca, dog or cat person, and what is your experience with the animal kingdom outside of humans?
Oh gosh, yeah. For those in the audience that love their cats, they're cute. Bugsy Adams, lovely little cat, lovely little guy. I'm more of a dog person personally. It's just because I've always had dogs. I've had puppies, dogs since I was about 8 years old. It's just kind of been they're part of the family. And currently living with our lovely Tamascan and Golden Retrievers. So yes, very much. Um, Indoctrinated in the dog world. I don't really know what the question is though, Jay. Like you said, like what's your experience with the dog kingdom? Like, I don't know, what do you want me to say
No,
outside of that?
I think you nailed it. So
Okay.
share how old our golden retriever is though, because I think that becomes very important in the aspects of behavior.
She is only 11 weeks, everyone, so she's really cute.
Yeah, she's a shark in the morning for sure. All right, Terry, what about you? Dog or
Um,
cat, and what's your experience?
dog, all dog. I've had a few cats. Let me rephrase. I've never had a cat. People I've been affiliated with have brought cats into my world. They're fine. They're so easy. Like you could just leave a cat for days and there's something, I mean, obviously you got to feed it and water it and be
Of
nice
course.
to it. But um dogs are like, oh, well, I gotta stop doing this fun thing we're doing because dogs, and that happens a lot. But yeah, the picture, which you can't see unless you double click it, is the puppy puddle. And that is my wife buried under our three dogs, the smallest of which is about 70 pounds. And the larger ones are, oddly enough, larger. At one point, we had two dogs and four bunny rabbits in this house. Um, 10 out of 10, do not recommend.
I love it. That's hysterical. So I myself am a dog person, mostly because I was highly allergic to cats as a young person. So we did not have, it would trigger an asthma attack. For some reason, cat dander just absolutely put me into the hospital. So we never had a cat growing up. However, as an adult, that allergy seems to have gone away and I love cats. I really do. I love their behavior. I love their independent streak. They remind me of me sometimes. It's like just can totally be left alone. Doesn't really, just give me some food, give me some water, and I'm good. Right? But definitely love the animal companions and love the pictures that are coming through here. So let's talk a little bit about behavior. And, as we were thinking about some of this, obviously there's a number of different behaviors inside of, dog species or cat species that we see. Everything from sniffing to licking to, rubbing up against you to scratching the sofa to chewing on things, you name it. There's a number of different behaviors. And I want to dig in a little bit here. So, um, Francesca, you mentioned Revi, our Temescan, and let's play a little game here of what are your thoughts and when it comes to behavioral elements, what would you be looking for if you wanted to assess a pet? And we can start with Revi as just kind of an example here. And then Terry, I'm going to ask you the same. Can you assess one of your pets, what you would be looking for?
Absolutely, Jay. I would say to start with Revi, she's more, from my perception, I would say she leads with more of her fire, with maybe a little bit of air in there. But I would say like if you're wanting to spot like more of like a dog that has more fire, things to watch for, like always on the move, gets bored quickly, kind of creates their own entertainment, loves chasing, running, and competing, and he wants to be first, can have some destructive behavior at times. Rev obviously doesn't have any of that, but she can definitely chase a squirrel, 40 miles down the road and not give two craps about that. Definitely frustrated when confined too long, or maybe just some high energy from the moment they wake up. Kind of like, let's go, what's next? I'm ready. She's because we've trained her to the point where like she kind of goes everywhere with us now. She's very laid back. But at the same time, I think at her core, that's maybe more how she is if we if we let her. So that would be some of the things to watch for. But if I were to observe her, I mean, she's just so laid back. I don't know, Jay, maybe you can add some 2 cents into this, but I would say her personality has the fire in the air. She's very curious and she's got that high prey drive. So I feel like that's the drive to acquire for sure.
Yeah, I think I would go with you on that one. I think her water is really limited to the very limited amount of people that she has identified as her pack.
Low
So
water.
I would say her water would be a little bit low. Her earth, her drive to defense, I would say that's higher than her water. I think that she does have a fairly decent like guarding and or protective aspect. But she's definitely, she can be playful and definitely has that sort of prey drive. So I could dig that. Terry, how would you assess maybe one of yours?
So I'm gonna use the dog that actually looks like Reb, the all black one, who we think is an Aussie, maybe a border collie. We don't know. We're not so concerned that we're gonna DNA test the dog. Um, I would say mostly fire, like high fire, very similar. Reactive dog, and I don't know if y'all have ever had a reactive dog. Those things cannot be fun at times. And so, Jay, you make up a good point, or made a good point about the idea of Earth showing up. Um, Even though it's the same damn neighbors every damn day, this dog has to bark anytime they're coming to their door, which, to be fair, is like 20 feet off our property, but in eyesight. So this dude's got to let him have it all the time. He is kind of curious, so I'd give him an air score as well. And then there are times in moments of, I don't know, clarity or lack thereof, when he becomes like this little cuddle monster for about 82 seconds. But he can't be too close with nipping at you, right? It's got to come up and try and bite you in the chin. So he's 3, and my wife and I were just talking about it. I spent the first 2 years begging her to let me get rid of him because I already had 2 dogs. I don't want a third dog. I don't like zone defense, man to man at best. And so she saw something because he's also the funniest of the 3. So he's got the best and worst personality of the pack. And but he's evidently my dog, follows me, sleeps with me, sleeps on my head sometimes. Yeah, it's great. 95-pound little chunky monkey.
Okay. So that's perfect. I love it. And you're hitting on some of these different aspects of behavior. And when we think about the animal kingdom, each of those animals, and there's Millie. I see Millie ready to take her nap there with Francesca. Uh, when we think about behaviors and analyzing behaviors in the world of ethology and in the world of pets and everything else, we all we all see these behaviors. We see that whether they're barking at the mailman, whether they're barking, whether they're deciding to take a nap, whether they cuddle, whether they don't. Let's talk a little bit about the observation portion of it. And maybe I'm going to start this with Francesca. Francesca, obviously, Millie is 11 weeks old. What is it when you are thinking about this? And we can draw this kind of parallel to the way that we watch behavior in the workplace or anything else. What is it that you're looking for, like to get the signs of, okay, is she happy? Is she healthy? What's she looking for? Or, what is it that she wants? What are you specifically targeting, or how are you evaluating the behaviors that you see from your pets? Oh, you're
Sorry,
muted.
I'm
There we go.
muted. I'm like, there we go. I mean, I think for most of us in this room that have pets or have had a pet at one point, I mean, maybe I'm kind of the oddball out here. I kind of feel like they're humans in a way. Like I kind of treat them like they're just a part of the family. So I just observe them like I would any other human, right? If I see that my partner looks maybe a little bit sad, I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe he wants a hug. Like that's just a normal human behavior. So I don't know when it comes to a puppy or yeah, exactly. Dogs are people too. I love it, Bonnie. So I think it's just one of those things, just observing them, right? We can kind of start to see those signs of I know Millie now, so does Jay when she's hungry or when she wants water or when she wants connection. We can kind of see that. Obviously, with a golden retriever, any of you that know the breeds, they're very high water. I always joke since I kind of we started talking about getting a dog that golden retrievers are like my spirit animal because it's very much my personality. I just want to be friends with everyone and give everybody hugs. So that would be my answer, Jay, is just like observing them like we would people, just being observant and speaking to their needs and seeing what they need at the best and worst of times.
All right, Terry, what about you?
It's interesting. Dogs for me serve a couple of different functions. Definitely the companion piece, right? They're so non-judgmental. It just doesn't matter how your day was. There is zero chance that, save crap on the floor, a dog is going to make your day worse, right? They're just not. And so I love that. And so I do prefer to have a dog that's kind of chill and laid back and easygoing. Our blue nose pit bull is like just the goofiest. She's so funny. But she's also really, really dumb. Shh, don't let her know that. She's not sure. And our middle dog that's kind of in between the two, some kind of, he's supposedly a Great Dane. I'd call him more like a good Dane. He's only about 90 pounds, and like an American bulldog. He was such my dog that the wife and child demanded that we get another dog. Right. So that was my dude. And then all of a sudden you just overwhelmed. So I like having a dog that, barks when it's appropriate, but most of the time it's just kind of like, hey, let's just hang out and, watch Star Wars together. There's a classic picture of the black and white dog and I sitting there, and he's literally got his paw on my arm, and we're watching Star Wars. It's just the funniest shot. So I love that. But I will be a pit bull guy for life. I love those dogs. They're just my fave.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm going to relate this to the ethological ecology. And it's very interesting because in listening to both of your responses, and I think this is a powerful lens that we can actually use, not just with our animal friends, but also in the workplace. So in the ethological framework, we start with the observation, the awareness, the describing what the observable behavior of the animal is. The second part of it, and I heard this in both of your responses, and I think this is so cool, is when you were talking about, say, for example, the person that's walking 20 yards outside or, 20 feet outside of the yard. What you did was the second part of ethological study of behavior, which is what happened immediately before the observable behavior. So this is all looking at stimulus, environment, environmental change, whether something in internal state or something of that nature, like what was it that created it? And then what did the animal gain or avoid? And I'm using your example here, Terry, because I think it was perfect. It was, okay, the animal felt safe because they deterred yet another threat that was 20 feet away. So what did they gain? And the gains here can be food, it can be play, it can be information, it can be contact, distance, a number of different pieces. And then I think the interesting part here is where we can look at the systems, the brain systems that are related to the behavioral elements. Because guess what? Dogs, cats, and every other animal species have dopamine systems. They have, the limbic reaction spaces. They're not exactly the same, and obviously, our brains are different. But they have the learning centers. They have the drives to bond in the aspects of social connection. So while the assessment is only specific to humans, it is an interesting piece here that in the study of animals in general, and yes, we are part of the animal kingdom, in the study of animals in general, we can actually take a lot from understanding and reading dog behavior, cat behavior, and then applying some of that knowledge. So let me give a little test here. Let's have some fun. I want to ask the audience, what are some of the bizarre behaviors? I did see Lisa put something in there. My golden would get so excited when people came over that she would pee on their shoes. Okay. So excitement and just overexcitement, it's a beautiful thing. We definitely see from the excitable, gentle, and loving golden retrievers. But what are some behaviors that you see, audience, that are kind of strange or something that you're like, I don't know why maybe an animal does this? So toss into the chat any of those behaviors. But let's take a look at, okay, so Cheryl tossed in excessive licking. All right, team, we're gonna play behavioral elements and we're gonna diagnose some of these behaviors. So excessive licking, what do you think it could be? Francesca, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Start us off here. We've
I
got,
think fire. It's just boredom and they just want to keep moving.
you're going fire with the excessive licking. Okay.
100%.
Terry, what are your thoughts?
It's straight up water. They have so much water, they're trying to spread it onto you.
All right, so it's a little bit of the drooling aspect. Interestingly, and again, this can be one of those things where I I know I'm such a nerd on this. Excessive licking can actually be both of those things. So, from the dopaminergic system, there is a sensory aspect to excessive licking that brings some level of joy. It releases endogens inside of the brain. But it is also very, very strongly associated with water, which can be greeting, solicitation, appeasement, and other aspects. So you could even say that there might be an element of air in there as well, of curiosity of what does this taste like? Because I would say that Millie is most certainly exploring the world through her mouth and her teeth and those little puppy bitey teeth. So Jennifer says, "Oh yeah, my pup peed on my shoe the first time I met him, like he was claiming me." All right, so let's talk about pee because you can't have pets without pee, right? What are your thoughts? What behaviors? Peeing on shoes. What would we classify that as?
For me, I
I,
feel like either the drive to defend, like they're feel like it's a protection mechanism, or I would say maybe an anxiety piece with the feeling like a lack of connection on the water scale, wanting that emotional safety.
Okay, I can dig that.
I
Uh,
was I was straight up drive to defend. So I agree with Francesca's initial thing. And then I'm gonna have to go extra water again.
little pun intended there. I loving it. So, actually, the you're spot on. So often marking behavior, and don't get me wrong. There's the excitement aspect that I think that was mentioned before. The excitement aspect, and some just can't hold their bladder. And I think that I have actually seen people, human beings, laugh so hard that they peed a little. Um, or that they've done something that has been or just kind of oops, get that excitement there. With that being said, marking behavior and or protective behaviors of making sure that they're claiming Jennifer, it sounds like you got claimed, and my guess is that you claimed right back. I love it. Lisa, allergies. All right. So this one probably gets into that biological aspect. I can tell you that Rev has some allergies, and it is very, very evident when she goes exploring out into some of the different fields or anything else and comes back with some of the different little allergens that are on there. Let's see. Amanda bumps her nose into me while she walks by. And I've seen cats do this, I've seen dogs do this. What's the diagnosis, team? What are we thinking here?
I think straight up water. It's a want for a need for connection.
Hmm, okay.
That's the dog's version of the high five for sure. And I actually got a t-shirt made for my wife with just their dog's little snout on it, and it just says boop because that dog is a booper for sure.
Could it also be, and I'm playing with this concept, could it also just be maybe it's an attention getting device, like, hey, I'm here, I need food. It could be dopaminergic. Thoughts?
I'm sticking with water.
It's
Straight up
straight
boop.
water.
Yeah,
All right.
it's
I'm
boop.
sure something scientifically, backs the fire, but yeah.
I we have our the black and white guy is a very communicative fella. He will tell you very specifically when he's hungry by a different bark than other ones. And then occasionally he'll go straight up Snoopy and grab and flip the damn bowl. Any of
Mm.
you have dogs that use their mouth and start flipping their bowl around? The first couple of times that happened, it made me laugh so hard.
So let me ask this, Terry. You just brought up a good point. You said the different tone in the barking. How did you learn that? Like, what was something that kind of clued you into, like, hey, this bark is different than that bark? Because I think this is
Yeah.
really important because obviously we work with people that have very different barks, very different bites. How did you learn that? What was some of your tactics to kind of get a better understanding of that?
It's funny because repetition is the key to mastery, right? And you start paying attention to things, and as a communication guy, I guess it came natural. But it was such a like lower effort, and it wasn't a repeated, I'm barking at something, or I'm trying to get attention, or I'm disgruntled. It was more like a help. It was like a low key, like, bro, I'd feed myself if I could, but I can't, so get down here and hook a brother up. It was cool. I love Lisa's dog carries the bowl
Mhm.
to her. That's
That's fantastic,
amazing.
Lisa.
It's
Well done.
impressive. So, Francesca, as you are navigating the 11-week-old shark, what have you noticed about differences in tones or noises or barks or anything else like that?
Oh gosh. So she goes from angel to little baby shark in about 10 seconds when she wakes up. And Jay and I definitely observed that if we take out her little pink bowl that kind of has little ridges to help her eat a little slower, the second she sees that, it goes from the soft, sweet, angelic bark to just like the high pitched squealing because she's so excited to eat her food. I don't know if any of you experienced this. Goldens are very food driven. My goodness. That's where I feel like her water backed by fire. She's got that drive to acquire. She wants that food. So that would be the difference in like some tone and inflection when it comes to her barking. But other than that, I mean, when you have any type of treat, we bought these little puzzles for her. You can see her excitement and kind of like the tonality shift in her bark for sure, depending on whether she's frustrated, wanting that treat to come out of that little puzzle, or if it's just that she's excited for food or she's excited to see us. How about you, Jay?
Yeah, I think that it's so important, and I think that this is true with any kind of animal because you can actually hear whether this is an aggressive or defensive. And I think that's a great place to start. Like, is this an aggressive bark or is it a defensive bark? And I think this is, something when you start to see and really look at some of the observable behaviors. Are the ears down? Is the tail down? Is it showing signs of fear? Revi is very, very clear. And part of the reason is she looks like a werewolf when she has her aggressive bark on. The back of her, the hair just on the back of her neck all raises, and it's you would be surprised. It's literally like 6 inches tall. And it looks like a werewolf when it happens, and it's just like that's the aggressive bark. Okay, so what is the playful bark? And they almost have like a higher pitch. But I've been in situations where reading an animal's behavior, whether it's taking a walk in a dog that's out of the yard and not on a leash, being able to read that dog's behavior and say, okay, this behavior is exhibiting is a little bit of aggressive, meaning that the head's down, the shoulders are up, the neck's protected, the teeth are showing, um, versus this dog is just drawing a line. It ran up to you and it stops and it's holding its space and it's holding its distance. And I think that that's also a really important indicator for pets is what is the distance parameters that it kind of creates for itself. Does it go off on its own and lay down over in the other room completely by itself? Okay, well that's an indicator. Does the pet cuddle and come up and have to be around their human at all points and times? Okay, that's another indicator. But I think tone is a really interesting one in the animal kingdom because while they don't use language, they do use tone and they do use body language, which is part of the reason why I wanted to bring this topic up is because again, what we can learn from reading people, we can learn to read pets, and what we can learn from reading pets, we can also use to read people. So I love that. Let's uh let's look at this one. High food motivation, meaning they will steal anything and everything. And I would like to say that this is what divides humans from that, but I am a pretty high motivated person towards food. And if you leave something savory on the counter, I'm probably going to go ahead and grab a hold of it. I'm not a sweets person, but I'm definitely the savory side of things. So and I'm going to share this with you. I had a dog. I was a Jack Russell terrorist. And yes, I said that correctly. A Jack Russell terrorist. And that dog was maybe the most food motivated dog I've ever seen. Literally at Flatfoot, jumped onto a counter and ate an entire pizza. Okay. Now, mind you, this is a 14-pound dog, and it was a Little Caesars pizza for those keeping score at home. Ate the entirety of the pizza. The dog literally looked like a football. Like I was concerned. I called the vet. I was just like, the dog got on the Flatfoot jumped onto the counter, mind you. Very impressive jumpers. Um, that dog would literally eat himself to death. I'm pretty sure. One time it got into the Rubbermaid tub. It figured out how to open the latch on a Rubbermaid tub, climb in, and started eating its way down the corner of the entire food. And I walked into the kitchen. My mom was just laughing as the dog was devouring it. I was like, this isn't funny. So what is it about food behaviors? Let's talk about this because human beings obviously have a lot of food customs. What have you noticed about food behaviors when it comes to cats, dogs, or any of our pets, and how that relates to maybe some of our human behaviors? What are your thoughts?
Our dogs dislike Mexican. I
Interesting.
don't know what it is or why it is, but if we do carry out Mexican or even just make some like burritos or tacos at home, it is the only food that consistently they're like, "Oh, no, we're not getting off the couch for this." They are my wife will still to this day, even though we paid the trainer to tell us not to feed the dogs from the table, she'll still feed them from the table. And not like with a fork, although to be fair, she has definitely fed each and every one of them with a fork. Um, it's so weird. They come, they have like they know when it's time to get the pizza crust or to get what the chips or whatever garbage we might be eating at that time. She will they won't bother us at all if it's Mexican consistently.
Interesting. So is it something ritualistic, you think? Is it the smell? Is it the like I mean if you took Mexican food and put it into something that was like the potato chip bag that they've probably identified that they're going to get something out of, you think that
That's
would
a
shift?
It's a fair question. I in the name of science, I'll have to get back to you.
All right, we're going to find that out. Francesca, what about food behaviors for you? What is your experience and not just pets, but I mean, how does this relate to, maybe the food behaviors that we see from people as well?
Absolutely. My synopsis on Terry's dogs, maybe they just don't like cilantro. You know, some humans just don't like the smell or taste of cilantro. Maybe that's it. I
Could
don't
be.
know. I love it. I would say, I mean, it's interesting because there's certain foods that Revi will love to eat. Like I love chickpeas. And when we gave them to her for the first time, she loved them just as much as me, so that made me laugh. But it is interesting seeing some of the foods that Jay and I really enjoy. If we put in Revi's bowl mixed in with her food, how much she enjoys that. And then, of course, with her golden, I mean, she's really stuck with just her puppy food and a little bit of yogurt and some pumpkin. But um, I mean, I think what's interesting is that, like, I don't know if this, and maybe Jay, you can answer this for us, but perceptionally, I always think when it comes to Earth, when it comes to structure, I always think of Earths being a bit more of like picky eaters because they like their structure, they like what they like, and they don't want to really avert from that. Whereas maybe someone with a higher air, they want to explore, they're curious, they're like, oh, I want to try new foods, different culture and everything like that. So I'm curious if that kind of relates because I know that there's some dogs that I've known that I could definitely observe are more higher earth and they like what they like. And if you give them anything else, they're like looking at you like, what the heck is this? So I do wonder that in some capacity versus, some with our dogs, they're a bit more curious and they're wanting to try new things all the time. So I'd be curious of your thoughts on that.
Well, I think it's an interesting question. One of the things that we have looked at with behavioral elements in people is how often they change their habits of ordering the same thing off the menu. So let me ask this, and we're going in the chat here. How many of you, when you go to say you go to a restaurant that you've been to before in the past, give me a yes, you order the exact same thing that you order every single time, or give me a no, you order something new. I'm very curious about this. In the name of science, audience, give us an answer here. Yes is you yep. All right. So I'm seeing some yeses. You order the same thing. No is you get something different. All right. So it's actually kind of a mixed bag here, which is kind of fascinating. Um, One of the things that we did, and this was not a scientifically valid study, this was actually a survey that went out. What we did find was that Earth often does, uh, they go with what they know. If I know it's going to be good, and there might be a desire of like, oh, that looks good, but it's like a go with you know. So we do probably say that that's associated with the Earth drive, where certainty, structure, and knowledge is going to drive us forward. The air element is the one that's more of like, hey, let's give this a try. Let's do something new. Now, this is not, again, a perfect science because there was a few Earths that were like, no, I will methodically try every single thing on the menu. So I start at number one, and then I do number two, and then I do number three, and then I do number four in order to collect enough data to say, what is my favorite dish at this place? Found that to be really fascinating. I was like, um, mind you, this was a research scientist at Wayne State University that did this that actually ended up saying that on that. So I was like, well, this is fascinating. But I do think that there is something interesting for the purposes of food culture of saying, all right, is it all dopaminergic and the desire circuit of I want? And it's probably not. It's probably a little bit of column A, B, and C, because how many times have you sat down and had a meal with somebody, even though you may not have been super hungry, you weren't necessarily interested in that place, but you did it because of connection? Um, and I think that this is probably true in pets too. I know that if you feed Revi's sister, Revi's going to eat more. And I don't know if that's social or if that's resource guarding. It's probably more of the resource guarding side, but they never argue with each other. They never fight with each other. They never go after each other's bowl. It's just if one of them's eating, the other one eats. They don't actually fight for it, which would be more of the resource guarding behavior. Is that social? I don't have a good answer to that. Is it more just triggered like, oh, it's time to eat? Well, not really, because Revy doesn't do that with her other sister, Millie. Millie can eat, and Revy's just like, oh, I'm good. So I think that food behaviors is a really fascinating study, both in humans and in the animal kingdom. Obviously, if you look at the ancient, kind of going back to it, food was a resource and you ate it whenever you could, which I think would explain my little Jack Russell terrorist. But yeah, I don't have a good answer, but I would say that Earth is probably I'd say that's a good representation. Terry, any thoughts on that?
As the high air representative, I am excited to have finally found some earth. Now, to be fair, food is sustenance to me. It's not an experience. It's not joy. It's something I do to live. So if I like something, I eat it. Going back to a Mexican thing. I get a chicken enchilada every time we go to a Mexican restaurant, regardless. It's like my gauge for how good the restaurant is. Um, I'll eat some different things at a few restaurants, but nah, man, I don't very much, which is fascinating because I'm so earthy all of a sudden. This is great.
That's funny. It's really interesting. I am seeing a couple of things in the chat. I did like um, Amanda's comment. Marie loves hot sauce. Have to keep her away from Mexican takeout. And I do think that it's what you had said is food is sustenance for you. It is for me too, and I can very much turn that, but like I love new food experiences. I love changing it up. I love different things. Francesca and I will go to different places and order four different things off the menu, and each of us just kind of sample through it. So like that experience of trying the new thing is super exciting. At least to me, I think it is to Francesca too. I don't want to speak for her. But I have noticed from the pet side of things, they're often unwilling to necessarily try something new, or at least in my experience, they're unwilling to try something new. And or when they do, it's the kind of taste it, spit it out, taste it, spit it out, and then like, yeah, no, this isn't my thing, or it is. So, Francesca, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes, I just have to echo what you said, Jay. I'm very exploratory when it comes to food. I think growing up Italian, my parents are both born and raised in Italy, and it's just always been a matter of like they want you to try everything and anything. So when Jay and I travel all over the world, it's always what new foods can we explore in different cultures that we can, immerse ourselves into. So yeah, hopefully we can continue instilling that in our dogs, keep them curious about different aspects. How about you, Terry?
I wasn't paying attention. You totally caught me.
Nah, that's funny. I think Terry had answered that on the question of not necessarily trying something new on that. Whether Terry's traveling and has to try something new, I think is maybe a different story. Let me comment on Cheryl's question here. All right, so Cheryl's comment here. She had mentioned that her pet when somebody was sick, and I think this is really an interesting aspect of pet behavior too. That her Siamese would actually show up and, lay next to or kind of be with um, family. And I lost the thread, but basically the gist of it was is that there it is. When the kids would have a temperature and would not leave their side, if they didn't feel well and Missy was following them literally everywhere versus laying around as cats do, knew to get the thermometer 100% of the time that they were sick. I find this really interesting too. Um, have you had experiences where maybe the animal kingdom had a better idea of what was going on in our world than we did? I have experienced that where, um, and I think Francesca, you probably have a really good story on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple different things come to mind, Jay. So when my dad got diagnosed with cancer the first time, we had a little dog named Bella, and she was always very much attached to me and always very much gravitated towards me, would follow me around the house. But it was interesting that I was only maybe 17 at the time. I was traveling a lot for the work that I was doing. And I noticed that we didn't know that my dad was diagnosed with anything. This was maybe a couple weeks before he got his official testing done. But she would like literally follow him and be by his side all the time. And then, of course, finally, when we found out that he did have cancer, it was just interesting that Bella, I don't know, like I said, picked something up, had intuitively felt something. And I know that a lot of dogs can actually, I don't know if they can sniff or they can sense that there's something wrong inside a person's body. But yeah, that was a huge indicator. And then ever since that, until the Bella passed away, she was always at my dad's side. So I thought that was really interesting. And then I would say the next one would be Revy, actually. It was about 2 years ago. I didn't think she noticed, but I noticed that she started to become gravitate towards me a little bit more. I was experiencing some different aspects of depression and this and that, and her gravitational pull towards me definitely increased, and just the way that she was a lot more nurturing and caring. It's almost like she knew, like, hey, are you okay? So it's really, really neat to see how our pets kind of they just know what we may not know. How about you or Terry?
I think every July 4th is a real good indicator of what dogs know and what they recognize, like in a big way. And I'm really hoping that one day we'll continue the wonderful light show of fireworks without all the ridiculous noise that goes along with them. For that very reason, dogs and vets would probably appreciate the heck out of that. And I saw in the comment, if my dog doesn't like someone, I'm on high alert from Jennifer. And boy, are they so good at reading people. If the dog's angry at you, or angry at someone, it's probably worth giving them a second look. And I always like to see how my dogs gauge other individuals entering our house. So, yeah, they're super cool and super attuned, as someone mentioned here.
Yeah, I'm seeing some awesome comments in the chat too about the intuition and, coming to check if he hears a change in inflection. I, I think that this is, and this is part of this, is obviously it's fun to have a discussion around some of the animal kingdom, but I think one of the things that we need to do is figure out what can we take away from this? Because one of the things that I truly, truly believe is what if we behaved more? And I'm not talking about the maladaptive behaviors of peeing on somebody's shoe. So let's get that one out of the way. But what if we behaved more like our pets in some cases? What if we were more attuned to that subtle change in somebody's tone or inflection? What if we were more empathetic and kind when we were able to connect with somebody? I think that there's a lot of lessons here. And I know, Francesca, you had something that you wanted to share, sort of like, what can we do? Or what are some of these pieces that we want to, maybe take away from this?
Oh, totally. I mean, I think when it comes to like training, even if our dogs are, obviously older in age, I think there's some certain things that will work depending on their elements. If you notice that your dog might be leading with fire, things that will work are like short little training sessions or challenger obstacles, like those puzzles, agility work, or like immediate rewards because they want immediate satisfaction of like, hey, I got this done. They like the variety, they like the competition. Things that don't work, maybe like long repetitive drills. Not that we're doing that with our dogs anyways, but like lack of exercise or too much repetition they might not love that. Whereas for like water dogs, I feel like some of the things that we can do when it comes to training, like positive reinforcement, lots of praise, lots of affection, calm encouragement, and that consistency. Obviously, what doesn't work is like yelling, harsh correction, or emotional disconnection, or feeling ignored, just like a water human. That's going to be a huge factor. And I was thinking about when it comes to the air. I think that for like any dogs that have like the high air puzzle toys because of the curiosity, any type of like trick training or like mental stimulation, showing them some new environments, maybe some problem solving exercises. They might love that. But what doesn't work, I think, for them would be like boring routines or lack of mental challenge because they are so curious. That might help them not to have so many maladaptive behaviors in terms of like chewing and biting. And then I would say for like the earth dogs, consistency is huge. Routine. It's kind of just think of anyone that you work with that might have higher earth. They love the structure, some calm leadership, lots of repetition. Obviously, what doesn't work is like constantly changing things. Maybe inconsistent expectations or chaos or unpredictability might make an earth dog. There's another dog that Rebby spends time with. Her name's Luna, and she's very high earth. And you can just tell any form of unpredictability just stresses that dog out to no end. So if we can keep it as consistent as possible, just kind of relaxes their nervous system. So that's my thought on that. I don't know what you guys, what your thoughts are.
I'm curious, do you guys assess people's pets based on where they fit into the elements? I mean, is this like I've had this conversation a couple of times at home, but I've never really given it a ton of thought outside of in that moment. Is this something that comes up for you too when you're like, "Ooh, look at that dog. It's very earthy," or you just mentioned Luna being Earth-like.
I think it's interesting, and partially just because the only thing that you can go off of with a pet, obviously, they're not taking the assessment, so you have to go off of the observable behaviors. And for me, one of the things that I like to do is whether it's a pet or whether it's a human being who is sitting down at a restaurant across the way, is look at them and go, what would their observable behaviors tell me about what their profile is before ever knowing them or anything else? Um, I'll share a funny story with this, and this is a little bit of an embarrassment, but at, Terry, as you know, I love body language as well. And one of the ways that I teach people to practice their body language and their awareness of their surroundings is by analyzing. And the simple version of this is what we call
Bless you.
people
Thank
watching.
you.
Bless you. But is what we call people watching. I like people watching for a purpose. So let's say, for example, I'm at a restaurant, and this was actually something that occurred as I was at a restaurant with a colleague, and we were evaluating the nonverbal communication around. And we'd pick a table and be like, "Oh, look at that table. It's probably an anniversary." And we would go back and forth about like what would tell us, what observable behaviors would tell us about what was happening in that space. At one point in time, we came to a disagreement, and this is the little bit of embarrassing story, but we came to a disagreement. I felt like it was a brother and sister that hadn't seen each other in a while, and my colleague had thought that it was two newly engaged partners. So we're arguing back and forth, and I'm going, "Yeah, look at the way that they're holding their wine glass. No, their legs wouldn't be set like that." So just all observable behaviors. And they would respond with, "No, look at this, and this is." So my colleague decided to have a bright idea of, let's find out who's right, called over our waiter and asked if our waiter would deliver a dessert to that table and say, "Congratulations on your engagement." And the waiter immediately knew what we were doing. We were laughing on it, and there was a ring on the female's finger, not a ring on the male's finger. Yes, that was an observation. But with that being said, the waiter took it over, dropped off the cake, and said, "Congratulations on your engagement." Now we couldn't hear this or anything else, but all you could see was the two people going like this. And I was like, "Brother and sister, check, please. Let's go." So don't do that. Don't ruin somebody else's day. But that observational piece is a really powerful way to develop our behavioral intelligence. So when I do see, whether it's animal, human, or anything else, different sets of behaviors, I oftentimes start evaluating, is this the drive to acquire? Is this the drive to defend? Is this the drive to learn? Or is it the drive to bond? Because from an evolutionary standpoint, when we think about those different systems, yeah, we're all different, but we're all part of that same sort of animal kingdom. Those systems exist in other brains too. And it just gives a different perspective to be able to look at stuff. And Francesca says, "No, I never wanted to be the person that does that." Sorry. Yeah, my brain just starts looking.
I was referring to when it comes to pets. I have always been a people watcher. Like I always love observing behavior, but I meant when it came to pets. I never wanted to be the person that was like, "These are that little guy's a fire over there." But hey, here we are. I'm okay
I
with it.
I love it. All right, Lisa has a question. Do you think people choose breeds of animals to reflect themselves? And that's an interesting question. Terry or Francesca, do you want to start off on that?
Go ahead, Terry.
All our dogs have been rescues, so we don't actually choose breeds as much as availability to an extent. Now, granted, when we go to the rescue, there's more than one dog. So I think it's probably size first, and my wife likes bigger dogs, and personality second. I don't think breed enters the consideration as a something to choose, but as something to avoid. Ooh, we don't want that
Mhm.
kind of breed. That's not the type of people we are, you know.
Mhm.
Like, having a being laid back and calm and having a high-strung Aussie as an example.
Gotcha.
I love it. I love it.
We
I,
inherited that. That was our daughter's dog. We didn't pick that dog.
Francesca, your thoughts?
I love it. I mean, I always think that it's got nothing to do with breed, and it really just has to do with like the owner's influence on them. Like, I mean, literally, Revy, I think her personality is exactly like Jay's. It's very comical to watch, and it's absolutely amazing to observe. Similarly to Millie, I feel like she'll be a little more similar to me on that end. But I've also seen breeds. I've seen certain people pick out a specific breed because they think they'll be high energy or whatever, and then they're just kind of as like laid back or like structured or anxious as the owner. And you're like, how does this make sense? But it's almost like they're like a little replica of the owner. So I almost wonder if it's just, they always say like dog like owner, they start to look the same and act the same. I almost wonder if there's some kind of science behind that.
I love it. My perspective on it is that it, I think there's a lot of factors, but I will tell you that I'm breed bias. Breeds that tend to carry more of the ancient wolf type characteristics is a little bit more of, if I could just have a wolf, if I thought that that was a responsible decision, which it clearly is not, I would probably do something along that line. With that being said, I would say that I am, and that doesn't mean that I don't love every other breed. This is not to disparage any other breed, but I am definitely, I would say, more drawn to breeds that would have some of that sort of more ancient wolf characteristic. I love it. I love it, Lisa.
Good movie.
Um, so, Bonnie, interestingly enough, and that is amazing. Obviously, Revy is a fully black dog, and um, there is unfortunately, and this is to share and something for people to keep in mind from an inclusivity and also from a bias perspective, is that biases actually do carry over very heavily from human to animal kingdom. Black dogs are oftentimes the last to be adopted, which is very unfortunate. They are euthanized more. There is an element of fear, and that's actually occurred. I've had that experience before um, with Revna and a vet, where Revna was required to have calming medication, which is really comical, versus another pup of ours that did not require calming medication, which probably could have used some calming medication. So there is some element of biases that do come into the decision making on breed, as well as, and I mean, we've all heard some of the different things like bully breeds or anything else, et cetera. So there is a bias that comes into that selection process. So it's something to be aware of. But I don't know if black is a breed, but I do very, very much love uh, the black color of Revy's fur. And it's yeah, I love it.
It goes so well with your light sofa. Good plan.
That's right. That's right. All right. So this is all about pets and behavior and what we can actually learn from the animal kingdom. Terry, what is one thing that you want to share as a takeaway as we walk out of our monthly webinar?
I think the one thing is be the person your dog thinks you are. Like, go out of your way to exhibit those behaviors to other people as well. Start treating people kinder. That's it.
That's a beautiful sentiment. And if we treated everybody the way that our dogs think that we are, it would probably be a much kinder, much more relatable world. So I love that, Terry. Francesca, what is your takeaway for today?
On a similar note to Terry, my advice to all of you is treat other humans the way that dogs treat all of us because they love unconditionally. They have such big hearts and they're just, I don't know. I feel like if the world was filled with only dogs and not humans, we would not have some of the issues or wars that we have today. So be more like the dogs.
Another beautiful sentiment. All right, well, then I guess I'm going to have to go to the science side. Humans and dogs, we're really not that far apart. Humans and cats, we're really not that far apart. And all other animals, we do have very similar systems, despite the fact that we have different complexities. So when we're thinking about behavior and behavior change, really looking at human and animal behavior and getting an idea of observing it, recognizing what the stimuli are, and then asking ourselves, was that behavior rewarded or was that behavior punished? And that conditioning occurs inside of the brain. So whether we are training our people, whether we are working to train our puppies or our cats or kitties, when we think about behavior is the root of success and failure. And how we choose to behave comes from our conditioning, comes from our genetics, and it's something that we can adapt with behavioral elements. So, with that being said, behave well and behave intelligently, friends. As always, it is a pleasure to be here with each and every one of you. And hopefully, you enjoyed this fun edition, little summer edition of behavioral elements and analyzing your pets. So, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Good stuff, y'all. Good stuff.